Trump recently filmed an absolute softball interview with centrist podcaster Lex Friedman, who I think is a decent enough guy, but when you're going to interview a candidate for the presidency, you have to be well-read on policy and willing to push back against false statements, and he did neither of those. So I've pulled a couple of the clips that I thought were the most intriguing from the interview to provide that kind of pushback and fact check myself.
I'm an independent. I have a lot of friends who are independent, many of whom like your policies, like the fact that you're a deal maker, like the fact that you can end wars, but they are troubled by what happened in the 2020 election and statements about widespread fraud and this kind of stuff, fake electoral scheme. What can you say to those independent voters to help them decide who to vote for?
I think the fraud was on the other side. I think the election was a fraud. And many people felt it was that, and they wanted answers.
Okay, so much in this clip to address. I will try to get it out quickly. I want to start with the first wild thing that Lex Friedman claimed, which is that Trump can end wars. I would love to know what war that Trump ended that makes Lex think this, because all he did was exacerbate wars, right? He moved the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, East Jerusalem being illegally annexed land by Israel from the Palestinians, which only made tensions between them worse. Trump's own DOJ went on to warn of retaliatory attacks because of this. And I mean, there were plenty of attacks in the meantime, like the attacks on the March of Return. Like, you can look at how this conflict escalated through Trump's presidency, and that action was one of the crowning moments of that. He did nothing about Russia occupying Crimea. Yes, Russia invaded Crimea under Obama, and Obama also failed to respond. I think that was a failure on his part as well. But Trump then allowing them to kind of annex of sorts and occupy that territory throughout the entirety of his presidency without adding sanctions, without having any pushback, without even warning of retaliating for it or anything, plays a part in why Putin thought that he could escalate further into Ukraine without seeing any sort of pushback from America. Trump vetoes multiple attempts throughout his presidency. He had vetoed multiple attempts to stop U.S. involvement in Yemen, only exacerbating that conflict as well. He started back and forth bombing campaigns between U.S. and Iran where U.S. troops were killed. I mean, this claim is on its face ridiculous. And then quickly, because we address this part a lot, and I don't want to sound like too much of a broken record, Trump has yet to put forth any evidence of fraud on the Democrat side. Over 60 court cases found no evidence or merit to the claims Trump was making. Everyone in Trump's administration, from national security to his AG to his entire DOJ, told him that the fraud claims were unsubstantiated or just outright false. And the only fraud that happened in 2020 was Trump trying to pressure state officials to change votes and then using fake electors in 7 states to subvert the votes of the people within those states.
So a lot of people believe that there was some shady stuff that went on with the election, whether it's media bias or big tech, but still the claim of widespread fraud is the thing that bothers people.
Well, I don't focus on the past. I focus on the future. I mean, I talk about how bad the economy is, how bad inflation is, how bad things like, which is important, Afghanistan was, in my opinion, the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to our country. And because of that, I think Putin went in. When he saw how stupid we were, Putin went in. But it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. I really believe that. But, you know, we left 13 dead soldiers. Think of it, 13 dead soldiers.
I really thought this part was funny because Trump starts by saying, well, I don't talk about the past, and instantly jumps into talking about Afghanistan withdrawal from 3 years ago because for some reason he thinks this is like a point that he can really hammer home, which it's important to note. More troops died in Afghanistan under Trump than under Biden. I think it's like 63, 64 died under Trump, 13 died under Biden. Trump also signed the Doha Agreement, negotiating with Taliban terrorists when he did it instead of the Afghan government, which put us on this disastrous timeline for the withdrawal. Trump then withdrew our troops down to 2,500 in the midst of ramped up attacks from the Taliban with all of our machinery and weaponry there. And Biden had to come in then and focus on just getting the rest of us out and sticking to the timeline. And there's plenty of worse failures on Trump's end. And to clarify here, pulling out of Afghanistan is the right thing to do. It was always going to be messy. And I personally would salute whoever it was that finally did it, because again, year after year, consistently more troops were dying staying there than died pulling us out. And now no more troops in the future will die there. But Trump, for instance, went against advice and attacked Iranian General Soleimani. Iran then retaliated by killing 3 Americans and critically injuring over 36. But Trump likes to pretend like pulling out of Afghanistan is not his fault at all, even though he released a lot of the terrorists who went on to do these attacks and set the timeline, but as if he was good for soldiers, which is just a lie on its face.
Like she lied on McDonald's. She said that that she worked at McDonald's. It's not a big lie, but it's a big lie. It's so, they just went and they checked. And unless she can show something, they don't talk about, the presses are going to follow up with it, but I'll keep hammering it. But she never worked at McDonald's. It was just sort of a cool thing to say, hey, I worked at McDonald's, But one of the worst was 2 days ago, I went to Arlington at the request of people that lost their children. There'll always be children to those people. You understand that. That's not politically incorrect thing to say.
Okay, couple things to mention with this one too. This one is on its face a lie. It's been wildly debunked. It's just kind of a silly claim. The majority of McDonald's are franchisees. The corporation of McDonald's would not keep record of employment of all the different franchisees. It would be ridiculous to think that they would. And it's unlikely that even the franchisee would still have them from 40 years ago. As again, it could have changed owners. It could have changed who franchised it. These things are kind of free flowing, especially with franchises. There's absolutely no evidence or proof that she didn't work at McDonald's. And unlike Trump, she didn't grow up rich, so it's very likely she did. Second, it's absolutely politically incorrect and intuition pumping to use the word children when talking about adults who made the choice to serve abroad, knowing the possible consequences of doing that. Saying children is a way to pump the emotion of an innocent child who no harm should happen to. And to be clear, when he went to Arlington, Trump's team assaulted a female staff, broke federal law, and took pictures on and near graves of Marines with family members like Kate Wyatt, who have spoken out about how it interrupts their ability to grieve and is disrespectful to those service members, right? The families of the 13 who were lost in the Afghanistan withdrawal aren't any more special than the families of the rest of the veterans who served and died and that are buried in this cemetery. They don't get to dictate the rules. They don't get to change federal law for Donald Trump. And if he really wanted to go, Trump could have gone without his camera and nothing would have been said. He only went for transactional reasons, knowing he could get a campaign video for publicity and likes and views. And he was willing to expose and degrade the other families and go against their wishes because he doesn't respect veterans, and also go against federal law to do so. If you enjoyed this video, we're Social Society. We're a commentary channel influenced by politics, society, and the economy. We are pretty left-leaning on this channel, but we're open to our right-wingers as well. The biggest thing here is having conversations that get everyone to the bottom of the truth. If that sounds like something that can interest you, consider smashing that subscribe button, leaving us a like, or even commenting on this video. We even have memberships available as low as $3 if you'd like to support, because the only way we become a society is together.